as she threw Witch Weekly onto the empty chair beside her. What a pile of rubbish.
What was that? We don't want to hear the story from him, do we? What a pile of rubbish. She looked over at the Slytherins, who were all watching her and Harry closely across the room to see if they had been upset by the article. Hermione gave them a sarcastic smile and a wave, and she, Harry, and Ron started unpacking the ingredients they would need for their wit-sharpening potion. "There's something funny, though," said Hermione 10 minutes later, holding her pestle suspended over a bowl of scarab beetles. "How could Rita Skeeter have known—" "Known what?" said Ron quickly. "You haven't been mixing up love potions, have you?" "Don't be stupid," Hermione snapped, starting to pound her beetles again. "No, it's just, how did she know Victor asked me to visit him over the summer?" Hermione blushed scarlet as she said this and determinedly avoided Ron's eyes. "What?" said Ron, dropping his pestle with a loud clunk. He asked me right after he'd pulled me out of the lake," Hermione muttered. After he'd got rid of his shark's head. "Madame Pomfrey gave us both blankets, and then he sort of pulled me away from the judges so they wouldn't hear, and he said if I wasn't doing anything over the summer, would I like to—" "And what did you say?" said Ron, who had picked up his pestle and was grinding it into the desk a good 6 inches from his bowl, because he was looking at Hermione. "And he did say he'd never felt the same way about anyone else," Hermione went on, going so red now that Harry could almost feel the heat coming off her. "But how could Rita Skeeter have heard him? She wasn't there. Or was she? Maybe she has got an invisibility cloak. Maybe she sneaked onto the grounds to watch the second task." "And what did you say?" Ron repeated, pounding his pestle down so hard that it dented the desk. "Well, I was too busy seeing whether you and Harry were okay to—" "Fascinating though you're so— I think this might be Snape. Okay. "Fascinating though your social life undoubtedly is, Miss Granger," said an icy voice right behind them, and all 3 of them jumped, "I must ask you not to discuss it in my class. 10 points from Gryffindor." Snape had glided over to their desk while they were talking. The whole class was now looking around at them. Malfoy took the opportunity to flash "Potter stinks" across the dungeon at Harry. "Ah, reading magazines under the table as well," Snape added, snatching up the copy of Witch Weekly. "A further 10 points from Gryffindor. Oh, but of course—" Snape's black eyes glinted as they fell on Rita Skeeter's article. "Potter has to keep up with his press cuttings." The dungeon rang with Slytherin's laughter, and an unpleasant smile curled Snape's thin mouth. To Harry's fury, he began to read the article aloud. "Harry Potter's secret heartache. Dear, dear Potter, what's ailing you now? A boy like no other, perhaps?" Harry could feel his face burning. Snape was pausing at the end of every sentence to allow the Slytherins a hearty laugh. The article sounded 10 times worse when Snape read it. Even Hermione was blushing scarlet now. "Harry Potter's well-wishers must hope that next time he bestows his heart upon a worthier candidate." "How very touching," sneered Snape, rolling up the magazine to continued gales of laughter from the Slytherins. "Well, I think I had better separate the three of you, so you can keep your minds on your potions rather than on your tangled love lives. Weasley, you stay here. Miss Granger over there beside Miss Parkinson. Potter, that table in front of my desk. Move now."
It's 4 o'clock.
Yes, it's 4 o'clock, computer. Thank you. Furious, Harry threw his ingredients and his bag into his cauldron and dragged it up to the front of the dungeon to the empty table. Snape followed, sat down at his desk and watched Harry unload his cauldron. Determined not to look at Snape, Harry resumed the mashing of his scarab beetles, imagining each one to have Snape's face. "All this press attention seems to have inflated your already over-large head, Potter," said Snape quietly once the rest of the class had settled down again. Harry didn't answer. He knew Snape was trying to provoke him. He had done this before. No doubt he was hoping for an excuse to take around 50 points from Gryffindor before the end of class. "You might be laboring under the delusion that the entire wizarding world is impressed with you," Snape went on, so quietly that no one else could hear him. Harry continued to pound his scarab beetles, even though he had already reduced them to a very fine powder. "But I don't care how many times your picture appears in the papers. To me, Potter, you are nothing but a nasty little boy who considers rules to be beneath him." Harry tipped the powdered beetles into his cauldron and started cutting up his ginger roots. His hands were shaking slightly out of anger, but he kept his eyes down as though he couldn't hear what Snape was saying to him. "So, I give you fair warning, Potter," Snape continued in a softer and more dangerous voice. "Pint-sized celebrity or not, if I catch you breaking into my office one more time—" "I haven't been anywhere near your office," said Harry angrily, forgetting his feigned deafness. See, he was faking to be deaf, and obviously he was no longer able to fake it when he was upset that much at Snape. Forgetting his feigned deafness. "Don't lie to me," Snape hissed, his fathomless black eyes boring into Harry's. "Boomslang skin, gillyweed, both come from my private stores, and I know who stole them." Harry stared back at Snape, determined not to blink or to look guilty. In truth, he hadn't stolen either of these things from Snape. Hermione had taken the boomslang skin back in their second year. They had needed it for the Polyjuice potion. And while Snape had suspected Harry at the time, he had never been able to prove it. Dobby, of course, had stolen the gillyweed. "I don't know what you're talking about," Harry lied coldly. "You were out of bed on the night my office was broken into." "I know it, Potter. Now, Mad-Eye Moody might have joined your fan club, but I will not tolerate your behavior. One more nighttime stroll into my office, Potter, and you will pay." "Right," said Harry coolly, turning back to his ginger roots. "I'll bear that in mind if I ever get the urge to go in there." Snape's eyes flashed. He plunged a hand into the inside of his black robes. For one moment, Harry thought Snape was about to pull out his wand and curse him. Then he saw that Snape had drawn out a small crystal bottle of completely clear potion. Harry stared at it. Ah, Goomy. Do you know what this is, Potter? Snape said, his eyes glittering dangerously again. No, said Harry, with complete honesty this time. It is Veritaserum, a truth potion, so powerful that 3 drops would have you spilling your innermost secrets for this entire class to hear, said Snape viciously. Now, the use of this potion is controlled by very strict ministry guidelines. But unless you watch your step, you might just find that my hand slips. He shook the crystal slightly. Right over your evening pumpkin juice. And then, Potter, then you'll find out. Then we'll find out whether you've been in my office or not.